You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. So, for far too long, I was part of the problem. For years, I, like probably many of you, really did believe that there was some magic number on the scale where I could feel, perform, and frankly, if I'm honest, look my best. And I, like many health and fitness journalists, wrote my share of weight loss stories with those promising headlines. But somewhere along the line, I began to see that it was mostly bullshit. I personally won big races 10 pounds heavier than that magic race weight, and I would tank just as often when I was at the weight I was quote unquote supposed to be. I would routinely get my ass kicked by a couple of really strong, amazing women that I would hear some people say, quote unquote, didn't look like pro mountain bike racers, meaning they weren't sticks, but they were insanely strong, well fueled, and winners. I saw the damage that my weight loss stories were having. I would go to my daughter's school functions and meet some moms who recognized my name from bylines in magazines, and I could tell they were ashamed that they weren't thin or lean or whatever, and they'd tell me how hard they were trying. And I saw an endless parade of diet plans and books, and it was just like this big machine that we all just kept feeding. And many of them were geared towards already active folks. It didn't matter where you were on the spectrum, you just weren't good enough. And I said, enough. I can't do this anymore. And honestly, though I know many people would love me to talk more about menopausal weight loss, I just can't do it. I talk plenty about getting strong. I talk plenty about good nutrition and fueling practices and sleep and stress resilience and all the things that can help your body find a healthy body composition. And I also believe that bodies change and that this vessel carrying our soul is amazing, whether it has some lumps or bumps or whatever we don't care for aesthetically. And if we are willing to spend as much time and effort living through our bodies and appreciating all we are here to do and able to do, instead of hating them and waging constant war with them, I really think we'd be so much happier. Because I see a lot of terribly unhappy women in our community, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to hear women tear their bodies tear their bodies down and say such awful things about them. And it feeds this machine that tells us that if we just hate ourselves enough and just tried one more diet, we'll finally find happiness. And because I spent far too much time feeding that machine, I am devoting the rest of my life to dismantling it. Which brings me to today's conversation with Marni Sumbal of Try Marni Coaching and Nutrition. Marni is an author, board certified sports dietitian, master of science in exercise physiology, 19, maybe 20-time Ironman finisher, and multiple-time Ironman world championship finisher. And she is on her own crusade against race weight and diet culture. And she actually reached out to me to have this conversation. She's like, I want to talk about race weight, body image, diet culture. And I was like, let's do it tomorrow. And we did. And I love everything she brought to this topic. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Okay, before we get to it, this is the final week to sign up for our course, Navigate Menopause. We had an amazing first cohort with 450 women learning together, helping each other, actually having a lot of fun. And it was really very special. So I invite you to come check that out. Our next cohort starts in a couple weeks. You can go over to feistymenopause.com to see all about that, or just I'll put a link in the show notes and you can click it there. I'd also like to give a quick thanks to Hedis for their support of the show. If you're looking for a running shoe made specifically for women's feet that was actually developed on molds of women's feet, Hedis is for you. And I'd also just finally quick thanks for all the kind reviews and ratings that are coming in on Apple and other platforms. You all are the wind beneath my wings. All right, enough of me. Let's have a few words about our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Well, Marni, welcome back to Hit Play Not Pause. I'm very glad that you reached out about what we're going to talk about today because I know it is an essential conversation because I hear it literally every day.
Yeah. Diet culture is a term that we hear a lot. I focus a lot in the sport space, and unfortunately, it doesn't get a lot of recognition there. People want to talk about more trendy topics about how to lose weight, how to get faster, but an underlying concern that I have is, well, if an athlete is impacted by diet culture, which
Mm.
we are all in some way, how will then that impact their mental and physical health? So I've been focused on this area of diet culture and body image and developing a healthy relationship with food for well over 12 years. And the
Wow.
reason why is because we live in a diet obsessed culture, and it promotes this constant quest of thinness and youthfulness. And I've been very outspoken about this as an anti diet dietitian. And I'm trying to spread as many positive messages as I can about body image and also sharing the harmful effects of diet culture. I've written a lot of articles and social media posts trying to educate athletes and coaches and experts on this very sensitive topic of body image standards that exist in sport and how this can put athletes at risk for disordered eating, mental health issues, sport burnout, and an eating disorder. And in our culture, it's really hard to be a woman, especially a woman over the age of 40. I love being a female and a female athlete, but it can be very challenging because we do live in this very youth, thin, obsessed society. And as a result, many women do fixate on how they look rather than how they feel. And if we think we can only feel good if
Mm.
we look a certain way, then we can constantly be at war with our bodies for a very long time.
Yeah, if not life. Yeah, and that's something that I talk about a lot too. And I am I am so for this. I think before we go further down that road, I want to address what the counterpoint that will come up, which is something that we've also, as athletes specifically, been has been impressed upon us when you talk about race weight, race weight, race weight. Like we all sort of came up with this idea that there is this like you have to be as light and as thin and as whatever, especially in his endurance sports, like that was everywhere. That was on bicycling, that was on Runner's World, that was in the triathlete, like those books. And I personally, would have always been, I've trended more muscular and I would fight that and I would like fight my body. Spent many years fighting my body, but I would have some of my best performances 10 pounds heavier than some of my other, when I thought I was at this weight that was like, wow, I'm finally here, So can you, as a coach for so long and an athlete yourself, can you talk about that concept of race weight? Because I think it feeds into sports diet culture.
Yeah. Athletes, we know that athletes come in all shapes and sizes, but we tend to be presented with an idealized image. And these days, I do feel that if you look at sport, and the sports that I focus on are triathlon, ultra distance sports, so swim, bike, and run within the ultra space. And if you do look at bodies, they are becoming more there's a variety of them, which I think is really great. But I also question how many athletes are still fighting to get into those or have that old school mentality of thinner is faster. And my opinion of race weight is that you have a race ready body, and
Mm.
that is where the body functions the best. And it's not determined by a number on the scale, but it's achieved through consistent training, nutritious eating, proper fueling and hydration, and also having enjoyment for your sport. And it's not based on a look, It's not on a number on the scale. And how you think your body needs to look may be very different than how your body needs to look to be at a healthy, ready weight. And a good reminder is that a race weight is within a healthy weight. So to think that smaller is always better is not true. And a healthy body weight can also be your race weight. So
Mm.
there is a point where athletes can lose weight unintentionally, be very fit and ready to perform, and it can still fall in something that doesn't look ideal, but they can be in the best fitness of their life and be ready to perform.
Excellent. So taking that idea and moving one step forward with it for this audience specifically. Women's bodies also change throughout their life, right? We see it like one of the hardest times for some women is puberty, where and we see that too, right? We see that in sport where Lauren Fleshman wrote a great book about it. How once they hit puberty, like their bodies are changing, and now that running is different, and you have to sort of adjust to that. But it is a period, and you've got society pushing against you. And I feel and I see on this other side that women's bodies also shift when they get into menopause, and the same battles are occurring. So how do you talk to that larger issue for women who are entering this part of their lives?
Yeah. Well, there's two topics that we should talk about: diet culture and body image. So I
Okay.
think we should start by talking about body image because
Okay.
that is really the foundation of everything. And body image, it forms in our infancy and then it develops throughout our lifetime. And it's impacted by a variety of sociocultural influences, life experiences, and the beliefs and behaviors of those who are closest to us, like our parents and our siblings, and
Mhm.
if we're athletes, our coaches and the community around us. And body image is very complex and dynamic. Everybody is going to describe a different relationship with their body at different periods of their life. I had a very good relationship with my body growing up as a swimmer because all my friends, we were always in our bathing suits. And that's just what we did. And it was just felt normal to me to be in a bathing suit with my friends all the time, my teammates. And that was a very positive relationship for me. I never had a coach ever comment negatively
Mhm.
on my body. It was always about performance. So that was very positive. And I know other athletes have had negative experiences with that as well. And so our thoughts with our body, they also shift as we age, and then we also go through different life chapters. We may lose a family member and become depressed. We may get anxious about a job change, a move, and that's all going to impact how we see our body, even if our body's not even changing. And so we go through these different chapters and experiences, and as the world changes around us, like COVID as an example. And when you feel dissatisfied with your body, then it's typical to channel those insecurities and body dissatisfaction through something that's going to allow you to gain control. And often
Right.
it's dieting, because that can then allow you to feel like you have control over something. And you likely have learned to accept the placement of a birthmark or a scar or some wrinkles or a group of freckles. And you know that you can't change that. I mean, you might be able to, but you don't really have to. You don't want to spend the money to change something. I'm not going to change my hand size or the size of my feet.
Right.
I'm 5 feet tall, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get any taller in my 40s. And I've also accepted that even though I've been swimming all my life, I'm probably not going to make it to the Olympic trials, and that's okay. I'm still a good person despite all of that. And so we all have things about us that we've learned to accept, and that doesn't make us less unworthy, or it doesn't make us less likely to be loved or accepted or decrease our value or worth as a human being. But society is constantly and unfairly pressuring us to change how we look.
Yep.
And one of those ways is our weight. And it's so easy and normalized. And I want to really emphasize the word normalized to criticize our body. And our society loves to promote smaller bodies and as those who are more successful and accepted and sexually desirable and healthy and happy, while all other shapes and colors and sizes and bodies, they're almost viewed as unacceptable because we don't see them very much. And that's the issue. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with having cellulite on your legs.
Right.
If your thighs are touching when you run, that's not a bad thing. If you have a soft backside, there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't have definition in your stomach or jiggle in your arms, these are not issues. These are normal. And you can still have all of these things and be successful as an athlete, and you can be incredibly healthy. So, self objectification,
Mm.
this feeds that destructive cycle of measuring your self esteem against that with your physical appearance. And then that's where we get into issues. That's where we get into issues with mental health, with dieting, with disordered eating, eating disorders, and even suicide. So, really, it comes down to body image. And then next, we can talk about the diet culture, about
Yeah.
how, when we have a negative body image, then we can, diet culture is there to scoop us up and save
Oh
the
boy,
day.
is it ever. And it's, I mean, honestly, Monty, one of the most distressing things since I've started this almost 4 years ago is watching the predatory behavior of different marketing and companies coming for menopausal, like women in this age group, midlife and menopausal women. It's so upsetting.
Yeah, yeah, and unfortunate as well. And the same thing with athletes, and that's my area that I focus on. And it's the same thing with athletes: is you can get faster, you can get better, you can buy your way to this, but we don't really see those results. So let's. You mind jumping
Yeah,
into
no, go
diet
for it. Go
culture?
for it. Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes I think there's confusion with diet culture because I think the word diet makes people believe that diet culture means you become a vegan or you're going keto. And
Right.
this is not what diet culture is. Diet culture glorifies a specific body type.
Yeah.
And we know that throughout society or throughout life, this has changed. But this then has the stigmatization of different body types that then don't fit that stereotype. Also, within diet culture, you have foods that are labeled as good or bad, and then that turns food decision making into moral decisions. Am I being good today?
Right.
I was bad today. And then diet culture, they want us to believe that we will be happier, we will be healthier, we will be more successful, we will be more loved and accepted if we make ourselves smaller. If only we could lose these last 5 pounds or lose this weight or get to a goal reach, we will be happy. And so as a result, this then keeps individuals of all ages, even as young as our 6 and 7 year olds, this causes us to be trapped in this relentless pursuit of a thinness. And I use the word thinness, but really it's just being smaller,
Yeah.
being in a smaller body. And it's a quest that often results in body shame, health issues, low self esteem,
Yeah.
disordered eating. According to the National Eating Disorder Association, around 13% of women over the age of 50 are engaged in some type of eating disorder. Around 20% of women over 70 years of age are trying to change the size of their bodies. Now, diet culture is different for all ages, but for peri and postmenopausal women, it can be even more problematic because there's this constant pressure for women to always stay thin and to appear more youthful. So, as a result, many women then fall victim to diet culture. And then, as you mentioned, spend years, if not decades, of life trying to lose weight or trying to change the way that they look. And it's so normalized that we can't even imagine. It's like me saying the moon and the sun are the same thing. Well, no, they're different. Like you just can't grasp your head around something that is so normal in our society, but we're just led to believe that if we're not constantly trying to fix ourselves, we're doing something wrong.
Right. Right. And what are the, especially like I spent some time in the research and I've had some people on the show that talk about the long-term ramifications of diet culture, not just psychologically, which is a huge part of it, but also physically because when whenever you lose weight, you're losing muscle no matter what you do. I mean, you can stave some of that off with resistance training, but some portion of that is going to be muscle. And when there's a regain, and there almost always is at least some regain, that's not muscle. So you're always putting yourself sort of behind the eight ball of trying to like keep your power, your body mass, and your lean tissue, your bone health for like all these things that become exponentially more important once you get into midlife and beyond.
Yeah. I was listening to a presentation not too long ago, and this person, it was a male presenter, but he specializes in obesity and weight gain. And one thing that I really took away from this presentation is that our bodies are evolutionarily designed to protect ourselves from being malnourished or starvation.
Right.
So if our bodies are extremely smart, and all throughout our lifetime, they're protecting us. They're protecting us when we're babies. We focus on making sure babies eat enough and they're gaining weight appropriately. When we're teenagers, we try to make sure that we're growing and gaining
Mhm.
appropriately. When we're in the later stages of our life, we want to make sure we're gaining muscle and not losing. But yet, there's this big part of our life that we're so worried about gaining. But our bodies are designed to protect ourselves because they don't want us to be now malnourished. They don't want us to be starved. So we have mechanisms built into our body that prevent us from getting into that state. Unfortunately, we don't have mechanisms built in that say, hey, you're putting on too much weight. The
Mhm.
body just sees that as a good thing.
Right.
Now, maybe health issues may come up down the road, uh, but for the majority of people, there is a range where your body's going to be at its best health at a ideal weight. And when it drops below that, the body starts to protect itself. It starts to shut things down. Because if it says that, if it thinks that your heart or your organs or your muscles or your reproductive system is going to start getting compromised because you're not eating enough or because you're trying to move it too much, then it's going to try to protect you. And so we all have a range or an ideal weight that we function at our best, and our body's trying to protect ourselves. So there is great risk when we try to go below that. And unfortunately, I think that there's a lot of women that, because of this idealized image and because of diet culture, we could thrive and really enjoy life and be healthy and maybe not be so impacted with the hormonal changes later on. I'm not saying that's for certain, but maybe we could be thriving better in life if we just accepted that, you know, I don't need to lose those last 5 or 10 pounds. I'm okay
Right.
with not having this idealized image that I'm seeing everywhere. And the body could be functioning in a great place. But it's when we try to go below that, that's where issues happen. And then it's also the cycling, and you and I just talked about this, it's the cycling of going too low and then the body firing back, that can also cause some hormonal issues as well.
Yeah, and I've seen women, I've had them on the show, who once they start letting themselves eat, honestly, like that's what they're doing is allowing themselves to feed themselves and fuel themselves. They do like everything goes to a better place. They feel better, they're sleeping better, and they are performing better. And again, even if it's not at this quote unquote race weight that they have in their mind or this magic number that they have in their mind that they're supposed to to be at.
Yeah. Uh, I've worked with hundreds of athletes, and I'm sure you've spoken with hundreds of people, but it's very interesting to me that the majority of, and I work with athletes, the majority of athletes, I would say that 90% of the athletes that I work with who are trying to lose weight are not eating enough.
Mm,
And that just kind of shows you or tells you that eating less is not the answer. We don't need to
right,
get into that in this conversation because
right.
everybody's different and unique. But the again, diet culture sweeping in saying you need to be more disciplined, you need to cut out carbs, you need to stop eating this food. When diet culture starts putting those, giving you those rules, then we start doing some damage to our body. And it's a big cycle of I don't like my body, I need to fix my body, and then we're making choices that aren't necessarily protecting or helping our body.
And we are, as midlife women, and I see this a lot in the books that are directed towards menopause women, particularly. Boy, carbs are still demonized so much that it's just like, what have we learned from the low fat craze? Nothing.
Yeah,
Not having the carbohydrates that you need for your training and your performance is really not good for you. Can you speak
yeah,
a bit to that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, our I think we just have such a poor relationship with food, and food for many people is just viewed as a way to manipulate the body, just like
Mm,
with exercise. And from a very young age, we have all these diet tricks and hacks as a way to change the way that you look. And while we may hear this chatter from the non-athlete, non-active, different population that says don't eat carbs, if you are an athlete listening to this, that doesn't apply to our population. And that may work for some people, but for athletes we need a variety of food, and we need carbohydrates because that is our primary source of energy to help our muscles and our liver and our brain so that we can perform better during exercise. And when we perform better, we enjoy it more, our body functions better, we recover better, we can be more consistent, and really, it's protective for the body because our immune system is better. We have better form. We can think clearly, have better decision making. So it's all about having a better relationship with food and not seeing certain foods and demonizing them. And there are some strategies that can be helpful that diet culture has given us. I mean, yeah, let's eat some more real food. There's nothing wrong with
right.
that, but processed food is not necessarily bad. And a lot of these strategies can be very hazardous and even unhealthy for our well-being. So we have to remember that food should be pleasurable. It serves a cultural component, um, and it nourishes us. And food and exercise should not be the primary method of manipulating the body in order to enhance performance. When you see your body as the enemy, it
Mm.
can make it very difficult to eat for fuel and nourishment. So we don't want it to be punishment. And I do think that speaking, answering your question, I do think that that's why a lot of individuals eat in a certain way is they're upset with how they look and they're punishing themselves through exercise and restriction,
Right.
and that can cause a lot of serious physical and mental issues.
How do you help somebody out of that?
Well, it can be very challenging because there's always going to be some shifts with the body. If you've been eating a certain way, and you're constantly stuck on a certain way of doing things, it can be very challenging to break through that and have some body trust. Um, but as an example, if somebody is not fueling adequately, usually I like to start very slow with making sure that they're eating enough throughout the day. And the reason why I like to focus on throughout the day is because when we go into a workout well fueled,
Mhm.
because we don't lose weight, we don't lose body fat by eating less carbs. We just deplete the glycogen that is stored in our muscles and our liver, which also holds water. So we're not really doing our body much of a service by just eliminating carbohydrates. I mean, if anything, we want to be gaining muscle. We don't want to be losing muscle. We want to get stronger. So, in order to do that, we want to fuel our body better. And the way that we do that is we want to arrive to our training sessions well fueled in a good, nourished, and healthy state. And when we have glycogen in our muscles and our liver from eating carbohydrates throughout the day, then we can perform better. And we know, especially as we get older, we need intensity when we exercise. We need strength training. There's nothing wrong with doing endurance if that's what brings you joy, but we do need a variety. And we don't want to lower the quality of our training or our exercise or our fitness routine because we're not eating enough. We want to raise it up to the level of how we want to push our body or perform or see what we're capable of doing. And the only way to do that is to make sure we go into our workouts well fueled. So I work with the athlete based on what they're comfortable eating, because if somebody is scared of eating carbohydrates, if they're worried about eating carbohydrates, asking somebody to eat a bagel or pretzels can be very triggering. So maybe we just start with foods that they are terming good, that they can see that eating potatoes or eating brown rice or something that's within their safe foods, that can be a very good start to help. And once they start to feel, it will hopefully snowball, and we focus more on the subjective um, feedback of how they're feeling, how they're sleeping, how they're recovering, and with the understanding that let the body take care of itself, because what we're trying to do is create a healthy, well functioning body, and that takes time. And in order to achieve this, we need to just let the body take care of itself, knowing that what we're doing is serving the body well. We're not doing something that's harmful to the body.
Excellent. And then hopefully that they can feel the difference once they are applying these and they feel better in the gym,
Yeah.
right? And they feel
I
better
think a
on
lot of athletes don't know how good they can feel, or people. They just kind of think like I'm slugging through this workout
yeah.
rather than wow, I'm having a really good workout. And then you also know if you really are having a bad workout that you can't blame it on anything else. Like, okay, I'm just having an off day.
Yeah. So then, going to the other side of that and talking about the body image, since these things are so inextricably connected, how do you help? I mean, it's such a I've done entire shows on it, and it's very hard, to help people with their body image. One of the things that I really appreciate that I've seen you do is not put up filtered pictures, and actually deliberately show, because race pictures are such a thing for people, right? They see them and they get sad. A lot of people they get bummed out. They're like, "Oh," and like, when you're breathing and belly breathing and running, I mean, it's going to be what it is, right? Like, and we don't do anybody a service when we filter our pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and one of the posts that I've posted is just a picture of me performing and two different pictures, and we've got the image of maybe what we think society wants us to look like, with maybe my stomach is flat and my legs look leaner, and then I have the same body on the same day where it's just the complete opposite. And there's nothing wrong with showing either picture, but if we're just programmed to show the picture that meets the idealized image, then we're also feeding into society and agreeing with them that we can only look a certain way, or we can only be happy or satisfied if we look a certain way. And I really do encourage people, if you're comfortable working out in a sports bra, work out in a sports bra. If you like wearing a tank top, work out in a tank top. Uh, we need more representation of different bodies. And I
Mhm.
also think this comes back to body satisfaction, is that when you are proud of your body, when you see it as something of how your body functions instead of how it looks like, you're going to treat it better and you're going to respect it better. And then also other people can then look up to you. What we see on social media is not the norm. The norm is a variety of shapes and bodies. So we need to make sure that we are seeing that. My social media feed is filled with, well, a lot of cats and dogs and animals. but also a very wide representations of shapes and colors and genders. So when I scroll through social media, which I don't do a lot, but when I scroll through, I'm not seeing the same images over and over and over again. So in my mind, I don't see what is normal. Well, normal to me is a variety of images, and that
Right.
then allows me to think of myself as what I see is also I feel like I'm normal and there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I really advocate for people to in because we do spend everybody spends some amount of time on social media, and I do think it's worthwhile to carefully curate who you follow and your feeds to have that, because you can see all kinds of amazing people in all different shapes and sizes, right? Like, and if you have your world that looks like that, you are more likely to feel like you fit into the world.
Yeah. And also be mindful too of how you speak or think
Mm,
about these images, like saying to yourself, wow, this person is performing well in a bigger body. No, this person is
right,
performing well because they trained, they took
right,
care of themselves. It has nothing to do with their body. For same thing with, well, that person does well because they're smaller and they do
right.
well in the heat. No, this person does well in the heat, just like other bodies don't do well in the heat. So trying to break some of these stereotypes
Mm-hmm.
of what certain bodies should look like, what certain bodies can do. Commentators do a really bad job of this and they need to do better. But I think it also, we have a responsibility ourselves to not make those assumptions.
And I implore people, and I see this, we have about 30,000 women in our complimentary Facebook group. And one of the things, and this is, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad, but it's been so culturally indoctrinated with us, and like you say, normalized to have this terrible self-talk, But if I am on social media saying I'm gross, look at my muffin top, look at the like, then you're really saying to other people who look like you that they're gross. I mean, it's insidious, and it's so very damaging. I wish we could if I had a magic wand, that might be one of the things I do with it. It's just stop that kind of really harmful self-talk that people do because it's contagious.
It is contagious. It's also how we've kind of learned how to bond with one
I
another,
know,
that
I
we
know.
have the diet talk, the body talk. And I've even heard younger girls in the locker room at the pool talking about their bodies. And it is, how you speak to yourself, thoughts impact our actions and behavior. So if you can speak to yourself better, and it doesn't mean that you have to love yourself, it's normal and it's totally fine to not love every part of your body, but you should still accept it and respect it. And
Hmm.
it's hard to take care of something that you hate. So if you can respect that this is how you are, you might be surprised that you might see yourself very differently too if you speak to yourself differently.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to make sure that we address in this important conversation on diet culture and body image?
Well, I I think I'd like to close with just talking about body respect, because
Okay.
if there's anything that the listener leaves from this podcast is that we are all going to age, hopefully. That's a good
Yes,
thing.
right?
Aging is a good thing because it means you're living. And so not letting ourselves age means that we're not letting ourselves live. And some of the most successful people in this world are over the age of 50. So they must be doing something right. And bodies change.
Yeah.
And we need to learn how to develop a healthier relationship with our body in order to take better care of it. Because there's going to be a time for everybody when a health issue arises. And the focus will be on, how do I heal from this health issue versus what am I looking like? And I think if we can have a better appreciation for our body, we can think of it as my body is doing so much for me and I need to take care of it. And it's not taking care of it in an obsessive way. It's not eating a certain way because we want to be, because this is how you're healthy. Um, it's taking care of it so that you can function well in life, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, which means that if it's easier for you to eat processed food throughout the day at certain times, and that allows you to function better, there's nothing wrong with that. So that is just an example that it's not about a hierarchy of eating a certain way
Hmm.
and you're healthier because of that. And then across our lifespan, our body image impacts the choices that we make for ourselves. So when we see our body as something good and positive and we appreciate it, we're going to be more likely to take care of it. So when we feel better in our body, we're going to feel better about our body. So I encourage people to just check in with your body as a friend rather than an enemy. Body. I often will say thank you body, hashtag thank you body. I've written letters to my body on my blog. Your body is not an enemy. It's there to take care of you, and you're with it for the rest of your life. And so when you can accept your body and appreciate your body, it's going to do more things for you. So think of it as a friend, not necessarily as an enemy.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that. I think that many people spend their entire lives literally at war with their bodies, and it makes me very sad. It makes me sad to think of getting to the end of one's life and having spent decades, in an intractable war battle with your body. It's Yeah. I mean, it's not it's that does not serve you. And I think that
Yeah.
maybe as you're mentioning, just having that uh introspection with yourself can go a long way.
Yeah. It's very hard because again, because of diet culture, because we're
Yeah.
told that this is how we have to look, how we have to eat. And we believe that. We believe, and perhaps for a lot of people too, they felt more appreciated when they were
Mm,
smaller. They felt they got more compliments. When I was doing my one of my rotations, becoming a registered dietitian, I was working in an eating disorder center,
mm,
and one thing that I learned was to not compliment the clients. And I asked, well, why shouldn't I compliment them? Because they may associate the compliment as how they're looking. And I think
right.
it's or their weight. And it's the same thing with athletes, right? We don't want to tell athletes, oh, you look strong, you look weak, you look lean, you look race ready, because then they're taught that this is how I have to look in order um, to receive these compliments, or they only recognize me because I'm looking this way.
Right.
So we need to be very careful with how how we comment or how we talk to somebody. I don't believe in congratulating people when they lose weight because I don't know their story. I don't know. Did they not, are they not eating because somebody passed away?
Yeah.
If I lose weight because my dog is 16 and a half and he's probably going to pass away soon, are people going to congratulate me on my weight loss because I'm depressed? And we've even heard people who have had cancer that lost weight. Oh,
Yeah.
how did you lose the weight?
Mm.
We're just so programmed to think that way. And so we really need to be careful with how we've been raised, how we, checking in, is that the validation that I'm trying to receive, or can I give myself that self acceptance and not have to work so hard to be pleasing other people or to get those compliments from other people? I need to be proud of my body. And if it requires so much work to look a certain way, to please other people or to receive these compliments, you have to ask yourself, is that really worth it? Is that how you want to be living the rest of your life? Are you fulfilling, what you want to get out of your one and only life?
Have you seen people transform in this way?
I have. I think it's hard. But I do feel that when you surround yourself with people who appreciate you as a human and not what you look like, that you're not surrounded by diet talk. As a coach, we have a community of almost 100 athletes, and I never talk about race weight. I never tell an athlete to lose weight. Um, we never talk about diets or fads. When we have pre-race parties or camps, there's no body shaming. So I feel that within our community, that our athletes are more likely to have a healthier relationship with food and body because they know they're not judged, that they know that they're appreciated, that they know that they're not being looked at in a certain way because of how they look. And so I do think people can transform, and I have worked with athletes who, even though it's still challenging, and of course it's challenging for everybody, but that they do appreciate their body, they thank their body, that they're not trying to look a certain way. And you know, what's interesting about this is I think if people feel that they give up on diet culture, that they're letting themselves go, that
Right.
they don't care about their health anymore, they don't care about their performance anymore.
Right.
And that's not what we're talking about. It's that you respect your body enough to not do these drastic or extreme or unhealthy measures. And unhealthy can be mental, emotional, physical,
Hmm.
to look a certain way. So if anything, it's not that you're letting yourself go because you're dismantling diet culture. It's because you care about yourself enough to take better care of it.
Excellent. I think that is a good place to wrap it up. This is a I encourage everybody to really take Marnie's words to heart and to think about that. This is a little I share your mission to help people um just get past this and not let it dominate their lives because there's so much to offer that has nothing to do with a
Yeah,
magic number.
yeah, yeah. It is. And you can, I think if athletes can, or individuals, doesn't matter where you are in your fitness journey,
Yeah.
but if you can just look at your life and just ask yourself, am I getting out of it what I want? And if you feel that losing weight will make you healthier, right? Because people may listen to me and think that I don't want them to lose weight, that I'm making them unhealthy because I'm not helping them lose weight.
Mhm.
It starts with the body image, body respect, and stepping away from diet culture. Because when you take better care of yourself, when you appreciate yourself, you make better choices. You sleep better. You move more naturally. You do things that help you in a positive way. You understand what your body needs. You have more body awareness. And through that, it's what diet culture is not teaching us. And through that is that you're able to then take better care of your body. And I really do believe that bodies will look at the blue zones, that people just move naturally. They're around good communities. They have
Mhm.
purpose in life. Um,
Mhm.
and they're healthy. So it's not so much about looking a certain way, but just taking better care of yourself. And I do believe that those who are striving for 20, 30, 40, 50 pound weight loss, to if they feel that that's going to allow them to be healthier, but do it in a way that you don't feel that once you reach that weight you're going to be healthy, that once you reach that weight that you can start doing things. You
Right.
can live your life right now, and you shouldn't be discriminated against, you shouldn't be shamed, you should be joyful and appreciate your body throughout all stages.
Perfect. Thank you for your wisdom. I really appreciate you, and good luck with all your upcoming events. I'm sure you've got many
Thank
on
you.
tap. Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with the legendary Sal Edwards, the pioneer of heart rate training and women's triathlon movement. I really, really loved this one. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause. And please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag at Feisty Menopause. Share the show with your friends. And please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.